Hey folks, welcome back to B Mills Farm. Today I have just some things to go over that I learned this past weekend when I went to a farm, and the lady that runs the farm, she rotationally grazes Black Angus, and she deals with grazing management and all that for a living, which is super awesome because she's like less than 10 minutes down the road. So, obviously things aren't exact. No matter where you go, things are going to change grazing wise and plant wise and soil health and all that. But it's nice that she's at least in my same neighborhood, basically, opposed to learning from people that are online in Texas or Wyoming or wherever. Those numbers really don't apply unless it's in your backyard. They give you an idea of things, but every situation is different. I'd like to go for a walk, but it's looking awfully rainy out here. The pigs are doing awesome in here. There's Pal. There's Maple. For some reason, they're not the brightest group of pigs I've ever had. Every pig besides these ones here have literally been one day of polywire and they knew exactly what it was. These guys keep getting whacked, so they're lacking something, I think. All right, it's starting to sprinkle. I guess I'll just sit in my truck, unfortunately. All right, so I waited till after it was done raining. There's Carl, and the pigs. So the lady that I went and visited, for a living, she teaches people how to rotationally graze, set up grazing plans, shows you how to calculate how much forage your land is producing per acre, which helps you determine how many animals you can have, for how long, paddock sizes, rest periods, all this stuff. And I got all this fancy paperwork with real life numbers and calculations and conversions and all this stuff to figure out how to properly graze your property. So she is grazing, I believe it is, she's rotationally grazing 30 plus cow-calf pairs for 183 days a year, I think she said. It was over 180 days a year, so it's a little over 6 months that she has no cost on her cattle. Hey. So for 6 months, they're eating grass, and she has a little bit of mineral out for them, but she's not feeding hay, she's not feeding protein tubs, she's not feeding anything. They're eating grass, she's moving them, and she's giving them a little bit of mineral here and there. So that's how you're profitable in cattle, is unless you're going to have a feedlot operation where you just scale up massive and have a ton of animals that you're just grain feeding and finishing as fast as possible. Grazing is where you're making your money. So I'll show you a picture of her cows here. Then I'll show you, so we walked around a lot of her pastures, and she showed me where the animals came off of and where they're going to, where they are now, all this stuff, showing me different plants and checking manure and all the stuff. She's awesome. She's full of information, and I hope to go back 1,000 more times. So right here I'll post a picture of what she takes her animals off. And here is a picture of what she's going to be putting her animals on. It has another week before she puts her animals on, but this is what she's putting her animals on. So that's like a lot of forage there. And this will be her third time on the one that they're not on yet. This will be her third time grazing that paddock. So 6 months of grazing, that's where you're making your money. Now, that leads to where we're at. And she advised me on a lot of stuff, and she's getting me in contact with more people who do this for a living, and rotationally grazing and regenerative ag and all that, which is what eventually I want to be doing. What I'm doing now is not that at all. So anyways, I went there to buy a bull. I wanted to get my Angus bred, and then I'll just sell the bull. But she just basically said, no. The last thing you need is another animal. What you need to do is destock either all but a few or all and start over. Unfortunately, all of my forage is very poor. Even my best paddocks are very poor. They're overgrazed, and to begin with, they never produced very much to begin with. So far I have 12 days that I have not fed hay. She doesn't feed hay for 180 plus days. I only haven't fed hay for 12. That's not good. That's especially when you're buying small square bales at $5 a piece. Every animal on this property I have more into than I could possibly get out. Like some of them I don't own, they're family, and so that can't happen anymore because it just doesn't work. So giving her kind of the lay of the land without her actually being here, there's a real low end of how much forage your land will produce, and I'll go over this all in more detail, but at a later date. But basically, we have enough forage here when it's pretty good to sustain 2 steers for 6 months. Now we can have more and have more hay cost, or we can have the 2 and go 6 months with almost no cost as far as cattle go. That sounds pretty stinking nice to me. The downside is, obviously, it's only 2 steers a year, but if you play it right, you can get 2 steers that are grazing, and when they're coming up on their finished time, you separate them out, feed them. As for right now, everybody that I've talked to, they want grain finished beef, so that's what I'm gonna do. Personally, I like grain finished beef. So they'll graze as much grass as possible to save on hay, and then they'll be finished on grain. So I'll separate them out, and then hopefully I can have 2 more steers starting to graze so that I constantly have a rotation of beef. So that's like probably where we should have started. Before I even bought an animal, I should have went and talked to her, saw her operation. Obviously, I'm going to have cattle here. Cows are my favorite animals on the farm. We just spent a whole bunch of money on fencing, which she's also not an advocate of that. She literally has $2 plastic posts and 1 poly wire that she does all of her paddocks in. She has no permanent fencing. It's all, she has, you know, a few $100s in fencing for 30 plus cow-calf pairs that are just in absolutely beautiful shape. So now we got to figure out a plan moving forward. Like I said, some of these are families' animals, so they will be finished here, sent off, and not replaced. Dolly and her calf will be sold off, not replaced. I got to figure out things with my father-in-law because he owns a few animals, and Clara and Josie, her calf, they're for sale. They'll be gone and not replaced. And then I will probably keep just one Angus, whether that's Miranda or Laney. I will keep one and just finish them on grain so that I can get some sort of beef rolling. So it's kind of a bummer because, again, I like cattle, but at the same time, it's really encouraging because I won't be feeding hay, so I did the math. I just to be at my baseline for how much work this farm needs a week. That's not going above and new projects and getting lots of extra done. That's just my baseline. All the animals are fed, watered, moved, whatever. It's 36 hours a week that I put in here. So there's no return on animals on your farm. There's only a return when the animals leave your farm. So I have to figure out which animals are the most profitable. I know for sure pigs are more profitable than cattle at this scale. Meat chickens are more profitable than cattle at this scale. And probably eggs too, to be quite honest with you. Only a few dollars at a time, but you can just have so many. They don't take up as much room, so you can have a lot more to make up for that. So moving forward, we're going to be getting rid of cows, except for the few that we're going to keep. For a while, the steers will be here till they're finished, and then I'll decide whether there's just no room for a cow-calf pair here. It's like she was saying, any bovine that's on your property has to serve you a purpose because they take up so much of your room, and there's not a lot of profit to begin with at the end of all of it. So any cow here needs to leave here so you can get reimbursed. And the most money you're going to make on a cow is selling beef by the cut. So basically, if I want cows to not only cost me money, they have to be beef. They can't be moms, they have to be beef. So there'll be a lot more pig stuff coming up. Hopefully Pal can get maple bred sometime soon, and then we can start moving piglets, and then we'll have some pork dates coming up, and I'm gonna slowly start processing my chickens. I think that does it for this video. I'll once I really dial in my grazing plan, which won't be dialed in until we have the proper amount of animals here, because right now I basically have to have sacrifice paddocks. These kind of are sacrifice paddocks now because there's no grass growing because it's just getting eaten as fast as it's growing. So these paddocks will be on a downhill spiral until we have 2 animals, 2 cows, and we can have adequate rest times. She's resting for 20 to 45 days before she puts an animal back on where they started grazing. Lots to learn. Unfortunately, I did things backwards. It's not the first time I've done that, and it won't be the last, but I'm glad I'm learning before I get too far in the hole. Do all the nice stuff for me. Like, subscribe, share, all the stuff. And until next time, keep farming. We will see you later.